Those 5 messages on dominion. Now we're moving on to delegated authority. And I'm setting this up as a separate series, although I will refer back to the series on dominion off and on throughout this. Luke chapter 10, verse 19. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Have any of you ever been stung by a scorpion? 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. 5 of us. I think the other 4 will agree with me. It hurts. I'm telling you, you think a bee sting or a wasp sting hurts. A scorpion, wow, that's fierce. All right? Anybody here ever been bitten by a snake? You've been bitten by a snake. You've been bitten by a snake. I understand you being bitten by a snake. I don't understand you being bitten by a snake.
I did bite him back, though.
I figured you did. Yeah. Lynn loves to camp out, I mean, he's one of these guys that goes out in the woods with a knife and that's it. Well, a little more than that, So, okay. Now, Fran, that's a different matter. But it was foolishness.
Yeah, I was with my friend. We were playing with a bucket of timber rattlers.
You were playing with a bucket of timber rattlers. Wow. Yeah, foolishness that fits. Yeah. Wow. Well, the point is, it hurt. It hurt. But he said, I give you power to tread on these things. There must be some shoes involved. Or boots. Okay, there's a lot more there than is what you see on the surface. That's the point that I'm making, okay? Now, from the Passion Translation, that's what TPT means. Now, you understand that I have imparted to you all my authority to trample over his kingdom. You will trample upon every demon before you and overcome every power Satan possesses. Absolutely nothing will be able to harm you as you walk in this authority. Now, I really like that last little phrase. As you walk in this authority. There's a very interesting mixture of words in just those 2 translations. You could add some others, and it gets even more intriguing. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to talk about these statements at length. I promise you, I will. But first, I need to set this up so you can really get the most benefit from it. For those of you who did not hear or have not heard this series that I just completed on the subject of dominion, I'm going to repeat just 3 or 4 quick statements. Number 1, dominion relates to plants, animals, and things. We have dominion over those. Authority relates to people, to the devil, and demonic spirits. Control relates to yourself. Those are the 3 biggies that we're talking about: dominion, authority, and control. Some people treat them like they're all the same, when in fact they're really not. Each of these has its own sphere, which will only work the way God intended for it to when it is kept within that sphere. For example, dominion is something which God gave to every human being at the time of creation. Authority is directly delegated to believers by God. And authority among people always works through the process of delegation and submission. And then control, or it's better to say self-control, comes about through the process of spiritual growth and natural maturity as proper discipline takes place. We are living at a moment in time in the United States where there are many, many people with adult bodies. You can finish the rest of this. And very childlike minds. They have no understanding of self-control, which tells you there's not been spiritual growth and natural maturity as a result of proper discipline. Some of those people have been elected to high offices. And I'll leave it there. Now, when I reach the end of this teaching on authority, my plan and my hope is to be able to give you some very, very practical instructions in how to use both your dominion and your authority. I'm calling that the how to do it part. Because usually that gets left out of a lot of sermons, you know. Okay, we should do this, we should do that, you ought to be doing this. Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you? How? Would you just tell me how and I'll do it? Okay, I grew up with that. I know a lot about it. In order to teach the things that God has instructed me to teach on the subject of authority, I have sought for some time for a way to illustrate how dominion and authority are different. And I am speaking specifically, especially, of how they're different in the way that they function. And the best example that I have to help you distinguish between dominion and authority is to talk about animals. Animals. We have owned, Don and I, we have owned horses, cows, dogs, cats. I think that's it, isn't it? But we have also dealt with skunks. I stood in front of the barn just a few nights ago, about 4 feet from a skunk, staring him right in the eyeballs. No, he did not spray me. I had him cornered in a hole that he had dug onto the ground, and he could not turn around. Hallelujah. Yeah. Possums, snakes, raccoons, coyotes, deer. We drove home the other night, started to drive up our driveway, and here are 2 big does standing right in the middle of our driveway. And whenever the headlights hit them, they scooted off to the side, took off. Alligators. I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. Wild pigs. Some of you who don't know are wondering, where on earth do they live? Well, this wasn't all at the same place, you understand. But various kinds of birds and probably a lot of other animals that I'm forgetting about. I actually have a picture. Don't know where it is at the moment, but I have a picture that was taken when I was about 16 years of age. And I am sitting on the edge of a platform like this. And laying right next to me is a lion. Alive, for real, lion. He's not full grown, but he's a pretty good sized lion. And they took my picture sitting there. I had been petting that lion. Yeah, it was a promotional thing for the college that I wound up going to. I thought, wow, if they can carry a lion around to promote their school, maybe that's a good school to go to. It worked on me. And they snapped my picture sitting there with a lion. Did he bite me? No. Did he growl? No. Why? Don't know. He just didn't. Now, I'm not trying to impress you really. I'm just trying to get you thinking the way I want you to. Because the stuff I'm talking about, these are not animals we saw in a zoo. We have been real up close and personal with these animals. And a lot of this is due to the fact that we do live and have lived most of our married life on acreage, out in what some would call the country. And in Florida, we lived in a newly developed area which backed up to what they called a conservation area. There is no telling what was out there. It's just that our youngest son, Jason, took one look at it and said, "Dad, that is Jurassic Park." There was a huge oak tree in my neighbor's yard. It was larger around than this pulpit. It was huge. Had been there for years. The neighbor bought the house next door and had the whole backyard nicely sodded. In the middle of the night, we heard all kinds of racket. We got up the next morning, and it looked like somebody had come in and had plowed up all of that sod, just ripped it to shreds. It was some of the 600 wild pigs that lived in the conservation area. They eventually trapped one. He weighed 600 pounds. You couldn't shoot them. We were inside the city limits. Now, the sod had covered up the acorns. The wild pigs could care less about the sod. They were after the acorns. That's why they ripped it up. So say this out loud. Sod does not have dominion over wild pigs. Okay, just thought we ought to settle that right here and now. Now, many of you, most of you have experiences of your own, and you know, if you like to hunt, wow, you probably got some stories to tell. But at the very least, all of you know the difference between domesticated animals and wild animals. You understand that difference. And you know that no matter how much we may try, there are some animals that cannot be domesticated. I'll put it this way. Some animals make good pets, and some don't. Now, sadly, every now and then, we hear about some person being killed or seriously maimed or injured in some way by an animal that should not have been kept as a pet. Those stories are all too frequent. Now, listen very carefully. God gave us dominion over all of the animals on this planet. But He did not give us automatic and instantaneous authority over them. By authority, I mean you cannot just tell an animal what to do and he or she will just automatically do it. Now, I honestly think that Adam had this kind of authority before the fall, but I also believe that we lost this connection to animals as a result of the fall and the curse. For 15 years, we had a beautiful white dog. He was part Great Pyrenees and part retriever. Wonderful dog, but as far as obedience was concerned, he would do what you told him to do if he thought it was reasonable. I found that there are a lot of dogs like that. And I'm not sure, and we've had several cats, and please, I'm not just down on cats. It's just that I know cats. I don't know that I've ever met one that found that anything that I said was reasonable. They just kind of have a mind of their own, you know. But over the centuries, man has figured out how to successfully use his dominion over certain animals so he can tame them. And by tame, well, I mean basically, we can sometimes get these animals to obey us when we tell them what we want them to do. And when animals respond to our voice commands, we commonly say that is a really well-trained animal. Now, to my way of thinking, we have brought that animal from the realm of dominion over into the realm of authority. Now, stay right with me, because later I'm going to show you how this applies to the devil and what God has done to him. Just want you to know that's where we're going. When we take dominion over something, it invariably requires some level of force. Like the other night, it was brutally cold where we live. The wind was howling and the windshield was down about 0, I guess. And our horse had been in the barn all day long, and I had let him out late that afternoon, and we knew it was going to get even colder. The wind chill was going to drop even further that night, and so I wanted to put him back in the barn, and he did not want to go back in the barn. He's domesticated. We have dominion over him. Sometimes he'll do what you tell him to. But it took me going out where he was and putting a halter and a rope on him and holding on to it tightly, and he cooperated halfway to the barn. And then it was quite a struggle from there on. He didn't act trained at all that night, but I did get him in the barn. So there's this realm of dominion, there is this realm of authority. And sometimes, and invariably, quite frankly, when you're operating in dominion, it takes some level of force. I would have had more control over that horse if I had been able to get a bit in his mouth. Putting a dog on a leash, that is exercising dominion. Now, when I think of authority, I tend to think more in terms of using words, giving commands instead of physical force. So, I see a big difference between dominion and authority in the way it is applied. Say that out loud with me. There is a difference in dominion and authority in the way each of these is applied. Now, if you have a problem with that, then try talking to a rattlesnake that is 3 feet away from you like you talk to your little puppy dog. You better be ready and able to do more than just talk. See, there's a reason. You never heard a sermon about dogs and horses, have you? This is just the introduction, that's all. It's just a long one. But there's a reason that your dog obeys you. And there is a reason that the rattlesnake will not obey you. Your dog knows you and loves you and has been trained and rewarded by you. Your dog has no reason to be afraid of you. Your dog wants to please you. None of that is true, and none of that can be true of the rattlesnake. And none of that is true or can be true of the devil, with one exception. I'm going to go back through it. I started out saying, Your dog knows you. There's the exception. The devil knows you. Remember the passage from Acts? Jesus I know, and Paul I know, but who are you? But that's where it stops. The devil doesn't love you. He has not been trained by you. He certainly has never been rewarded by you. And he does have every reason in the world to be afraid of you. And he does not want to please you. And that's where I've been going with this. Keep following me. A lot of people don't seem to know that animals are actually afraid of us, because they know instinctively we have dominion over them. And that is why they will fight back. It is out of fear. Now think about these words concerning the devil. From the King James, James chapter 4, verse 7. Submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. From the Message Bible. So let God work His will in you. Yell a loud no to the devil and watch him scamper. That's pretty good. Now the actual Greek word translated flee means to flee in terror. To flee in terror. And that's what happens when you resist the devil. But here's the difference. The animal is reacting to the fact that he knows that man has dominion over him. The devil is reacting to the fact that he knows we have authority over him. We can do something with physical force to the animal. We can only speak words to the devil. But that is enough because of what God has already done to the devil. I'll circle back around to that in a moment. A lot of animals can become very dangerous if they lose their fear of us. When we were living in Florida and we were helping Rodney Howard Brown, we had moved down there, and Rodney wanted to move his offices from Louisville, Kentucky to Tampa, Florida. And so Don and I did a lot of research, and we found a building, and Rodney had seen it. We checked it out. And so we rented a large portion of a really nice new office building there in Tampa. And my office was situated in such a way that the whole wall to my left, as I was sitting at my desk, that was all windows. It was all glass. And just beyond that glass was a large pond. And most days, whenever I would arrive at the office, sit down at my desk and start to work, do the things that I had to do, I could look out my windows and I could look at that pond, and up on the sides of the pond, there would be 1, 2, maybe 3, 6, 7, 8 foot alligators laying in the sun. I was sitting there one day and I glanced out the window and I saw a very large bird. I mean, he was big. He wasn't as tall as this pulpit, but he was a big bird like that. And he was standing there, and there were alligators laying on the side of the pond. And the bird was there, and he's pecking in the ground along the edge of the pond. And I thought, dude, you better watch out. And in a moment, here comes an alligator. He slips into the water, and I could see his old eyeballs as he's swimming across the pond, headed right straight for the bird. And in a moment, the alligator comes charging out of the water. Choop! Bird gone. One bite. Now, not too far from my office outside, there was an area that had tables and benches, and people would bring their lunch to work, and they would sit out there and they would eat their lunch. And the alligators would come up close and they would throw them bits and pieces of food, in spite of the fact that there were large signs that said, "Do not feed the alligators." And one of these rascals grew to over 8 feet of length, and they had to come and dispose of him because he lost his fear. Became dangerous. Now here's a very important takeaway. With animals, we exercise our dominion over them until we think we have gotten them to the place where they will submit to our authority. Your dog knows you have dominion over him or her. He just hopes you don't know it. You know you have dominion over the dog, yet your dog will test your efforts at exerting authority over him by refusing to submit and obey. Because you see, your dog is smart enough to try to find out if you know that he knows that you have authority over him. And the devil knows you have authority over him, and you know you have authority over the devil, but the devil will test you to see if you know that he knows that you have authority over him. And as long as you act like you're afraid, and as long as you talk like you don't have authority over him, and as long as you do nothing to exercise your authority, as long as you let him get by with refusing to do what you say to him, the devil will continue to act like you have no authority over him. You cannot be neutral when it comes to the devil. You cannot. According to Luke chapter 10, verse 19, Jesus said, "Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you." That verse can be divided into 3 parts. Power to tread on serpents and scorpions. Power over all the power of the enemy. Nothing shall by any means hurt you. The key to nothing hurting you is found in using the power we have over the enemy's power and power we have over serpents and scorpions. Say this out loud. The key to nothing hurting me is using the power I have been given. It's amazing how many people don't know that. It's amazing how many people don't believe that. And they get hurt a lot. And they'll try to grab hold of that last part of that verse. They'll try to apply that. Well, nothing's going to hurt me. Nothing's going to hurt me. Well, did you use the power you've been given? Because unless you use the power, you are vulnerable. Come on, it's true. It's true. The authority has been given to us. It's up to us to use the authority to keep from getting hurt. Yes. God, in His grace and in His mercy, protects us from a lot of things we never know about. I'm so glad I am a tither. I'm going to say that again. I am so glad I am a tither. I've had to use my authority enough being a tither. I can't imagine what life would be like if God did not rebuke the devourer for my sake. I don't know, but I wonder. Quite honestly, I kind of suspect that once we're in heaven, that most of what happened here, we just won't care about it anymore. I just kind of think that. I get that from the fact that the moment's going to come when He's going to wipe away all the tears from our eyes. And when there are no more tears, well, then that means that a whole lot of stuff that happened here, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to hear about it. We just forget it as though it never happened. But I've often wondered, since I'm a tither and the devourer is being rebuked for my sake, will I get to see a video maybe of all the stuff that He rebuked that I never knew was there? I think that'd be kind of cool, because I guarantee you there's been a lot of it for all of us who are tithers. You know, there's lots of reasons to tithe, but boy, that's a biggie as far as I'm concerned. Really is. But you know, we have to learn. Say it out loud. We have to learn our authority and how to use it. Now, what I'm doing today is setting this up so I can come back and I can talk about a lot of the things that Jesus said about authority, a lot of the things that Paul said about authority. And I want to really dig into that. So I'm just kind of setting the stage for you with this message today. I dare to say, and I think you would agree, that we are living in the most dangerous time that the church has ever faced in the United States. I really think that. Every day. Seems like another horde of demons has been turned loose on our nation. But the good news is they are no match for us. I think you ought to say that out loud. Demonic spirits are no match for us. That should be true of every believer. It should be true of every believer. It should be true of every person that's born again. It should be true of everybody that's received the Holy Spirit and speaks in tongues. But the fact of the matter is, it is not true of all of them, simply because they've not been taught, they don't know, they don't understand. No one has shared with them the truth about the authority that is theirs. I constantly, and I understand this, please don't take this wrong, but I constantly run into people that they're most excited about the ministry of Kenneth E. Hagin because of what he taught them about the use of the words and speaking the word and faith confessions. And I'm excited about all that too, but I think maybe sometimes I'm even more excited about what he taught me about the authority of the believer. That's actually where I plugged in with him. That was the first book I got my hands on. And I've told that story. And I taught that book back and forth over and over and over and over again. Because somehow, for years, since I was a kid, I'd had a sense that I had more authority than anybody was willing to tell me. And I had grown weary of, if it be your will. And in my orneriness as a kid, I had concluded, why can't God make up His mind? Why do we always have to come back to, if it's God's will, if it's God's will? Isn't there somewhere where He told us what it is? And I discovered the Bible. They didn't refer to that like they should in my church. They thought they did, but not in the right way. So I know I have authority. I wish everybody did. I wish everybody knew that they had authority. It'd be a different world. We just have to know we have this authority. We need to know how to use it. And then we need to do it. Do it. Now, I'm going to a passage of Scripture in Isaiah that I don't know if you've ever heard anybody talk about this whole passage or not, but I'm going to for a few minutes. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 3. Isaiah 14, 3. And it shall come to pass, in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb. You ought to underline that word. This proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the sceptre of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Might ought to just say it in passing. This is not written by a guy from Arkansas, okay? Verse 9. Hell from beneath is moved for thee, to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Hold on a minute. Wait a minute. Who's he really talking about? He said this is a proverb against the king of Babylon. Wait a minute. But the whole earth is at rest. Even the trees are rejoicing. But verse 9, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. Wow. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy viols. The worm is spread unto thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? The prophet Isaiah begins by calling this a proverb. So not every word here is intended to be literal. Isaiah is painting a word picture of something. Follow me. I'm going to hit some high points. Verse 4. He calls it a proverb against the king of Babylon. Why does he start there? Well, because the people who first heard this proverb could relate to the king of Babylon. They knew a lot about the Babylonian king and what a monster he was. So Isaiah, through this proverb, is seeking that identification, if you will. And then in verse 7, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. When the prophet gets to verse 7, he is expressing how the people would feel if this king was brought down. And then in verse 8, yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. The word feller is not misspelled. That is talking about men who cut down trees. They felled trees. So the trees are happy because there is no longer anyone to cut them down. And the comparison as to what's about to happen to the devil. The king of Babylon, in the parable, is no longer able to cut them down, but there's a whole lot more going on here. I'm going to start at verse 9, read through verse 12 again. Hell from beneath is moved for thee, to meet thee at thy coming. That is quite a statement. That is quite a statement. Hell knew the devil was headed its way. in the proverb. So hell is moved to meet thee at that coming. Wow. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up their thrones, all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? The picture is all of these people that the devil had tormented for years suddenly are going to see him as he really is. And he builds into that phrase, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer. So we really know now, in verse 12, this proverb is about the devil. It's about the devil. And he goes through those verses that I read previously, verses 12 and 13 and 14. And then we get to verse 15 and he says, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider, saying, is this the man? No, he's not a man. He's never been a man. Remember, this is that proverbial language that is there. Jesus is making reference to these amazing words in Luke 10:18 when he says, I saw Satan fall like lightning. From the We translation, Jesus said unto them, I saw Satan fall from the sky like lightning. Lightning is an amazing force. Absolutely amazing. It's amazing in a lot of different ways. The sheer power that is involved in lightning. It's amazing. And how far-reaching its effects. That also is amazing. I remember one time as a little boy, my mother was talking on the phone and it was storming outside. And somewhere off in the distance, the lightning struck. Not our house, not on our property, not even on our street. It was quite a ways off. But we saw the flash of lightning. And somehow that electrical charge was picked up through the phone line and came out of the receiver and struck my mother in the ear. And it affected her hearing in that ear from then on. And yet that lightning was quite a distance away. If you've ever seen a large tree struck by lightning, it is devastating, the force that is involved. I like to put it this way. Lightning is fast, lightning is furious, and lightning is final. And Jesus said, I saw Satan fall like lightning. It was fast, it was furious, and it was final. Now, God the Father had dominion and still has dominion over the devil. And he exercised that dominion over the devil and kicked him out of heaven. God did that a long time ago. The Father reduced the devil to a laughing stock, so much so that men will look at him and say, really? You gotta be. Now, I know this to have authority over it. I'm going to say that again. Once something has been brought into dominion, it is then possible for those who know this to have authority over it. That's true of a horse. If you don't believe that, try getting on the back of one who's not been brought into dominion. And then if you survive that, who knows? Maybe it's just touch him with your knee to go one way, with the other knee to go another way. Maybe it's just to simply say, stop, or left, or right. And suddenly you know you're on a horse that's gone from the realm of dominion to the realm of authority. and he understands your authority over him. This is also true of a dog. Bring a dog from the arena, the realm, the scope of dominion. Bring him into dominion. And then people that know they have authority, they can work with that dog. But here's the really good news. It's even more true of the devil. The devil is subject to God's dominion. God has complete dominion over the devil. So God chose to give man authority over the devil, and there is nothing that the devil can do about it except try to keep people from knowing they have authority over him. The devil can't duck it, he can't defeat it, he can overpower the authority we have over him, because God has dominion over him, and God will not allow that to happen to people who know they have authority over the devil. Anytime you need to exercise your authority over the devil, keep this picture in your mind. God has the devil on a short leash with complete authority over him. He's going to do what you say because he doesn't want to deal with the one who has dominion over him. Are you getting this? Whatever you tell the devil to do, he's going to obey the authority you have over him because he knows who has the dominion. Did you get it? Did you get it? I think sometimes people have felt as though they were just trying to exercise authority over the devil, and they were somehow doing this alone, by themselves, hoping that it would work or something or another, and quite unsure. So let me paint on the picture just a little bit more. Do you know what a Clydesdale is? How many of you know what a Clydesdale is? Just want to make sure that's everybody. A huge horse. Huge horse. A very powerful horse. An awesome horse. I used to think I wanted a couple of them. I used to think that. I would need a stepladder to get on one. I would need to hire some people to clean up after him. Enough said. I might need to take out a loan to feed him. But you know what? I've seen people ride those horses bareback with nothing but a lead rope. Just a rope. Telling that horse what to do. And he or she would do it. Why? Because somebody got dominion over that horse. It's a good thing. There are other horses that are actually bigger than the Clydesdale. It's called a Shire. And they're even bigger. And people get dominion over them. And once they know somebody's got dominion over me, then people who know they have authority over that animal can work with them and do things with them. Leave here with the picture in your mind that the devil is like an animal that God has complete dominion over. Absolute, utter, total dominion over him. And the devil knows that God, who has dominion over him, has told you, you have authority over him. And with that, exercise your authority over him. Oh, but Pastor, what if I tell the devil to do something and he decides he don't want to do it and he comes after me because I told him to do something? No. God's got hold of the rope. I think you're getting the picture. Authority is yours. It's yours. Use it. Exercise it. Do it regularly. Don't give a second's thought or care to what the devil thinks about it. That doesn't matter.
Kutamachoto, take